1956, psychologist Edgar Schein studied American prisoners of war in Chinese camps. He discovered something terrifying. The guards did not break the soldiers with brutal physical torture. They broke them by extracting tiny, seemingly harmless concessions. A simple written statement that America was not perfect was enough to begin a massive psychological collapse. The interrogators understood that once a man makes a small commitment, his entire self-image shifts to justify it. Every single time you forgive someone who disrespects you, claiming you are just being an empathetic person, you are making that exact same Machiavellian concession. You are not being kind. You are writing your own quiet instruction manual for absolute submission. Listen to me very carefully. The unspoken rules of power in modern relationships are shifting rapidly. The social landscape is changing, and the window of opportunity to build an impenetrable psychological armor against emotional parasites is closing faster than you think. What I am about to reveal in this classified briefing is not public knowledge. It is a highly guarded breakdown of how covert social predators use your desperate need to be a good person to map out your insecurities and keep you permanently trapped at the bottom of the hierarchy. If you choose to click away right now, you are making a fatal choice. You are mathematically guaranteeing that your internal power, your time, and your status will remain drained by toxic people who view your forgiveness purely as free, exploitable labor. But if you stay until the very end, I will hand you the exact psychological blueprint to destroy your people-pleasing habits and command instant, undeniable respect. Let us get one thing straight from the start. Nobody respects a willing victim. You were programmed to believe that accommodating everyone makes you noble. Elite manipulators call it pure cowardice. The trap of uninvited debts. Let's expose how elite predators actually operate in the shadows. They use a powerful psychological weapon known as the rule for reciprocation. Sociologist Alvin Goodner proved that a massive web of indebtedness controls every human culture on Earth. When someone gives us something, we feel a suffocating obligation to repay them. Manipulators understand this flawlessly. When they commit a severe act of disrespect against you, they do not argue. Instead, they quickly offer you a tiny, fake apology or a moment of fabricated vulnerability. They offer it as a gift. In a famous experiment conducted by Professor Dennis Regan at Cornell University, an assistant named Joe gave unsuspecting subjects a simple, uninvited bottle of Coca-Cola. Later, Joe asked them to buy raffle tickets. The subjects who received the uninvited favor bought twice as many tickets, even if they actively disliked Joe. The sense of obligation completely destroyed their rational judgment. We see this exact same dark psychology in the airport solicitation tactics of the Hare Krishna Society. They force a flower into the hands of a passing businessman. When the man tries to give it back, the solicitor refuses, saying, "It is our gift to you." Caught in the iron grip of the reciprocity rule, the man hands over a monetary donation just to escape the psychological weight of the uninvited debt. This is exactly what happens to you. When a toxic person hands you a fake apology, your mind registers it as a massive debt of intimacy. Because you are terrified of looking unforgiving, you accept the apology and repay them with your endless patience. You are paying back a debt that was completely fabricated to keep you compliant and submissive. You forgive them because you fear conflict, the good cop manipulation. To keep you trapped in this cycle of endless forgiveness, covert manipulators deploy the perceptual contrast principle. In criminal interrogations, police use a tactic called good cop, bad cop. One interrogator acts like a raging lunatic, screaming and threatening the suspect with maximum prison sentences. Then, the second interrogator steps in, speaks softly, offers a cup of coffee, and pretends to be on the suspect's side. Compared to the raving, venomous bad cop, the good cop looks like an absolute savior. The suspect drops his guard and confesses everything. Social predators use this exact same psychological contrast against you in your daily life. First, they act like the bad cop. They ignore you, belittle you, or violate your boundaries. Then, the exact moment you get angry and decide to walk away, they instantly switch to the good cop. They soften their voice. They act stressed, misunderstood, and emotionally exhausted. Human beings judge the worth of something based on the event that immediately preceded it. Retail clothiers use this to sell a $400 suit before offering a $90 sweater, making the sweater look cheap by comparison. When the manipulator shifts from cold abuse to warm vulnerability, the contrast is blinding. It tricks your brain. You think you are comforting a friend in need, but you are just falling for the oldest interrogation trick in the dark psychology playbook. You drop your boundaries and forgive them, entirely missing the fact that both the good cop and the bad cop are the exact same predator playing you for a fool. Commitment and consistency trap. Why is it so impossibly hard to stop forgiving them once you start? Prominent theorists like Leon Festinger and Fritz Heider uncovered that humans have a nearly obsessive desire to be, and to appear, consistent with what they have already done. Once we make a choice or take a stand, we will encounter massive personal pressures to behave consistently with that commitment. Psychologists Jonathan Friedman and Scott Fraser proved this with the foot-in-the-door technique. They asked homeowners to put a massive, poorly lettered, "Drive carefully" billboard on their front lawns. Almost everyone refused, but a different group of homeowners agreed at a staggering 76% rate. Why? Because 2 weeks earlier, they had agreed to place a tiny, 3-inch safe driving sign in their windows. Psychologists Jonathan Friedman and Scott Fraser proved this with the foot-in-the-door technique. They asked homeowners to put a massive, poorly lettered, "Drive carefully" billboard on their front lawns. Almost everyone refused, but a different group of homeowners agreed at a staggering 76% rate. Why? Because 2 weeks earlier, they had agreed to place a tiny, 3-inch safe driving sign in their windows. That one tiny concession changed their self-image. They now saw themselves as public-spirited citizens. The need for consistency acts as a shield against the harsh labor of thinking. In another observation, a logic professor completely destroyed the sales pitch of a transcendental meditation cult. Yet, the audience rushed to pay the membership fee immediately after the lecture. Why? Because they were terrified of the logic. They needed a hiding place from thought. This is the dark reason you cannot say no to anyone. The first time you forgave a toxic person for crossing your line, you made a tiny psychological concession. You altered your own self-image. You labeled yourself as the patient, understanding, forgiving friend. Now, you are sealed within the fortress walls of rigid consistency. You keep forgiving them over and over, not out of true empathy, but because you are utterly terrified of breaking your own submissive pattern. You are a prisoner of your own past concessions. Pluralistic ignorance of boundaries. When you constantly forgive, you are broadcasting a loud, undeniable message to the herd. You are creating false social proof. Researchers Bibb Latané and John Darley uncovered a phenomenon called pluralistic ignorance. When people are in an ambiguous situation, they look around at the actions of others to decide what is correct. In a famous incident in New York City, 38 witnesses watched a brutal attack on Catherine Genovese for over half an hour, and not a single person called the police. Why? Because everyone looked at everyone else, saw that nobody was reacting with panic, and automatically assumed it was a non-emergency. The inaction of the crowd generated lethal social proof. Covert manipulators use this exact principle to test your emotional armor. When they cross your boundaries, they watch your reaction very closely. They are looking for social evidence of what is acceptable. If you immediately soften your stance, offer a warm smile, and say that everything is fine just to avoid social friction, you are generating toxic social proof. You are teaching the predator that their abusive behavior is completely acceptable. They learn from your own calm reaction that your boundaries are an illusion. You think you are being the bigger person by keeping the peace, but in the dark reality of social hierarchies, you are actively validating their disrespect. If you do not react with cold, unflinching consequences, the predator's brain registers your silence as absolute permission to destroy you further. Let's return to the Chinese prison camps. The interrogators knew that verbal compliance was never enough. They pushed the American soldiers to write their anti-American statements down. Why? Because a written testament provides physical evidence that the act occurred. Once a man wrote it down, it was impossible for him to deny it to himself. It drove him to make his inner beliefs consistent with what he had undeniably done. The Amway Corporation uses this exact same magic by forcing their sales staff to write down their goals. Writing it down creates a magical, unbreakable commitment. Toxic people use this against you in the modern digital world. When there is a conflict, they demand an explanation. They want you to send long, emotional text messages explaining why you are hurt and why you forgive them. They want your submission in writing. Because the moment you type out a long paragraph to justify your forgiveness, you take inner responsibility for the submission. Elite operators do the exact opposite. They offer zero written concessions. Weak people write long paragraphs explaining why they are angry and begging for closure. The truly powerful never explain their choices. They embrace the asymmetry of silence. By refusing to write the script of your own defeat, you deny the parasite the physical proof of their control over your emotions. Redefining the trick. How do you escape the crushing weight of these uninvited debts and fake apologies? You must deploy a psychological maneuver of redefinition. As compliance experts know, if a fire inspector gives you a free home extinguisher just to guilt you into buying a massively overpriced alarm system, you are trapped by the reciprocity rule. The only way out is a private mental act. You must define the free extinguisher not as a gift, but as a sales device. The rule of reciprocity states that favors are to be met with favors. It does not require that tricks be met with favors. You must apply this exact maneuver to the social predators in your life. When they offer you a sudden, tearful apology after weeks of disrespect, you must mentally redefine it. It is not a moment of genuine vulnerability. It is a highly calculated compliance tactic designed to trigger your savior complex. Once you perceive their apology as a manipulative trick rather than a gift of trust, the heavy psychological burden of owing them your forgiveness completely evaporates. You owe them absolutely nothing. A trick does not deserve your empathy in return. Weak people are utterly terrified of social friction. They will swallow any insult to avoid a confrontational silence. Elite operators embrace friction to test the hierarchy and see who holds the power. Let the friction burn away every toxic, one-sided connection in your life. The ultimate psychological transformation requires you to kill the cowardice you have been disguising as empathy. For decades, the famous Milgram experiments at Yale University showed that ordinary people would deliver lethal electric shocks to a screaming victim simply because a researcher in a grey lab coat told them to. They unhooked their professional intelligence and blindly obeyed the symbols of authority. By constantly forgiving the people who trample on you, you have handed them the lab coat. You have made them the absolute authority over your reality, and you are blindly obeying their demands for your patience. You must rip that title away from them today. You must build an impenetrable armor of indifference. Greatest operators in the world do not waste a single heartbeat trying to comfort a manipulator. They understand that social friction is not something to be feared. It is the exact tool used to command instant, undeniable respect. When you stop being the submissive explainer and start being the ruthless director of your own life, the manipulators will panic. They will call you cold, arrogant, and selfish. That is the beautiful sound of the emotional parasite starving to death. We have reached the critical point of this briefing. I want you to analyze your own life right now. Why do we consistently forgive those who have mathematically proven they will betray us again? Is it real empathy, or are we just terrified of the social friction of walking away? Answer this in the comments below. If this painful truth hit you exactly where it needed to, and you are finally ready to draw a permanent line in the sand, drop the words "born loser" in the comments right now to prove you are killing that fake virtue today. Take back your power. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications to master the dark psychology and warfare tactics the elite use to dominate every hierarchy. Stay cold, stay silent, and never apologize for your power.